Hello and welcome back to another Gunpla review. Today we're taking a look at the sand brown version of the high-grade Universal Sentry Dom Tropen from 0083 Stardust Memory. Now I will admit I'm not the biggest fan of Stardust Memory, but I do really like the mobile suit design in it, and this is no exception. Now this kit did come at a time during the high-grade development cycle where things got a little bit crusty, but, well, let's start off the review by, as always, taking a look at the articulation. Okay, starting off, the head is on a ball joint and kind of a it uses the standard old polycap that has a hinge, but it's so deep set in there it's pretty much static. So you pretty much just get a ball joint, and because of the head shape and just the bulk of a Dom, you don't get a ton of movement there. You get a bit of a wiggle, a little bit either side, a tiny bit up and down, and that's about it. Now, this is where the crust age of high grade starts to get a bit of a problem. Yeah, that's as far out as the arm goes, and there's no shoulder movement. If I take this off, you can see the shoulder joint is literally part of the torso. So, yeah, not a ton of movement there. So you get about 45 degrees out to the side, full rotation, obviously, and thankfully the shoulder armor is a separate piece. Please focus. Thank you. Do get a rotation, and a full 90 at the elbow, which is fine, and the hands, as always, on a ball joint. However, I will point out, you do actually have articulated trigger fingers, which is nice. The waist does not much, a little bit of wiggle side to side because of how the polycap is, and about that much of a rotation. Not a ton going on, but given how bulky this thing is there, it's not really a big deal. Front skirts are separated, not a ton of movement there, but hey, they are separated. A ton of movement to the side of these, which I don't really get since the hips are just ball joints. You only get about that far. Yeah, there's not a ton of movement going on here at the hips. Even if you bend the knee, it's nothing amazing. You get a decent rotation considering it's ball joints, but yeah, also that's about as much of a knee bend as you're getting. This doesn't really get much movement there. It's about 45 degrees. And the ankle is just a ball joint, so yeah, that's all the movement you're getting there. So this thing doesn't have a ton of articulation going on, but it can still get into, I mean, pretty much any pose you'd want a Dom in. Now let's get into the accessories, starting off with sticker sheet as usual, and by extension the color correction, because as you can see, all you have is the eye. The eye being both the black and the actual mono eye itself. Oh, come on, focus. Thank you. Yeah, that's all sticker, because the head is literally 3 pieces. It's very simple. But aside from this, which thankfully, small sticker sheet, it's just a little bit of red. Honestly, just a little scatter here on the chest that needs to be painted red. Focus, thank you. A little bit of red in here and black in the center. Actually, a little bit of black around here too, apparently, but honestly, it's such a minor detail, it doesn't matter. These you can just do with the Gundam marker, no real problem. And apparently, there's supposed to be some red inside these, so yeah. Aside from that, not too bad. Pretty good color correction on it, honestly. There is one other thing that needs to be painted, and it's kind of a big one. The heat saber is just one color, and as far as I can tell, it's just completely the wrong color. Both the handle, which is supposed to be more of a darker gray like the other weapons, and also this is supposed to be white, so it's just outright wrong. This can just store back here, same as any other Dom. A little bit loose, honestly, but it's not that big a deal. It's not going anywhere. The hands, which, as we already went over, holding hands with movable trigger fingers, which is nice, and also one splayed hand, which is always welcome. Then getting into the weapon that comes with both this and the other Dom Tropen that has the more standard Dom colors, the bazooka, which honestly looks really nice. I do like this a lot. It has a decent amount of parts, including, well, that's really in there, a removable magazine, which is nice. This can also come off and looks pretty decent without it, but you know, it's supposed to be there. Interestingly, the barrel is actually a separate piece, which I did not expect. And this is kind of just a modified version of the Converse bazooka, thinking about it, but that's not really a big deal. Movable handle. This one is static, but I guess you could probably get it holding that. The thing is, with the lack of shoulder movement and just how bulky it is, you can kind of get it up over the shoulder without any trouble. Like, it gets there fine, but trying to get it actually held with both hands is just something that's not going to happen. But you also get some ammunition that can just be pegged on to either the front skirt here, which is fine, or onto the back skirt in any of these spots. You get 2 lefts and a right. Then moving on to the accessories that just come with the brown Dom Tropen, you get a pretty standard Xeon machine gun and a bit of ammunition for it, and also this has a removable magazine too, which is nice. And yeah, it is the same tab connection, and these are just supposed to tab in here. It looks fine. Really simple stuff. And finally, we have the last accessories, and the ones that I'm going to be complaining about. These Stormfasts, which, to be fair, pretty simple. Just, 2 pieces. Pretty standard for high-grade Stormfasts, and they have these little connections that actually have a couple of little tabs which fit into here. Not very securely, mind you. They're basically just held in with gravity. But the Stormfasts themselves aren't the problem. The problem are these. This is some of the worst connections I've ever had on any accessory for a kid. As you can probably see the little bits of gunk here. That's from tightening this up so that it'll stay on, because otherwise it just falls right off. In fact, it won't even go in now. These ones with the round pegs, they just don't want to attach on at all. These more square pegs are kind of better, but even then they don't really want to sit on. It's just a really poorly thought out connection system, honestly. Unless you really want to mess around with it, honestly, probably gluing this in is the best option. Also, these don't have the same connections, so you have to peg them in a certain way in order to get them all layered. So this is just a really poorly thought out system, honestly. I really think they could have done better. Just not a good connection there, and these don't work very well. Though, while we're on the topic of everything connecting on, this does have a lot of good connection. You can pretty much put on most of the accessories on this thing. Either all the Stormfasts or, all the ammunition. You can fit pretty much everything on this. Including, if you want, you can store the machine gun underneath this on the back, which is a nice touch. Also, let's just quickly go over the extra parts you get. A couple leftover polycaps, nothing really special about that. But you do get a couple of extra parts, which is nice. That being the chest parts for the regular Dom, that aren't tan, as well as the knee joints, which also aren't tan. So you can do a little bit of sort of personalization with these, with the leftover parts, which is nice. And for a size comparison, honestly it's about the same size as a regular Dom, which you wouldn't really expect considering the not quite the same proportions. The chest is a lot smaller, so it really feels weird that it's the same height. But yeah, there's not really anything wrong with the scale of this. It's a pretty decent size. So to wrap this review up, the Dom Tropen is a okay high grade. The color separation's pretty good, the articulation's a little bit lacking, but then again, given that it's a Dom, the slight lack of articulation isn't that big of a deal. You know, these things are so bulky, you don't get a ton of movement either way. You get a ton of weapons with this thing, which is great. Though unfortunately the Stormfausts are a little bit lacking, but I mean, you can always fix that by tightening it up and maybe just gluing it in place. You don't have to use like cement or anything on that. You could use a weak glue that you could break off easy, so unfortunately you have to do it, but it's not really that big of a deal. But otherwise I actually do quite like the Tropen. It looks great, and like I said, the amount of accessories for the brown one anyway is pretty impressive, so if you're interested in picking one of these up, I say go for it. Though keep in mind you will have a few things you need to work on. But anyway, that's been all for this review. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, it helps a lot. Subscribe for future reviews and watch my backlog. Go follow me on Twitter for updates, and consider supporting me on Patreon so I can keep bringing you reviews, just like this one. And as always, until next time, happy building.